Managing your run in We Who Are About to Die is just as important as the combat itself. Good management will make the fight so much easier and make you way more likely to get a victory. So I want to show you all the best things you can do on the management side to set your runs up and get easier wins. The very first thing to do when you start a new run is to immediately sell off all of your starting gear that has negative fame bonuses. None of this stuff is any good, and every little bit of fame helps, so just get rid of it. It'll make you a little bit lighter as well. Now this next one is the most important thing to do at the start of the run, but also at the start of every single week. You want to look at the fights before you do anything else. This is going to let you set your priorities for the week. For example, if there's a luck of the draw or spoils to the victor, you know you don't necessarily have to buy a weapon right away. On the other hand, if there's a 1v many or something tougher like that, you might want to try to gear up a little more. Check the bets too. If there's a really good bet available, maybe you try to save some money for that instead of spending it on something else. When you're first starting a run though, your top priority should always be getting a good weapon. Pretty much any run I do starts with a couple rerolls of the shop to see if I can get one. It'll let you get fights done quicker, hit more bets, and take on tougher, higher paying fights. Don't be afraid to literally spend everything you have on a good weapon to start. If you don't get a weapon, again, things like luck of the draw can give you a little time to get one, or spoils to the victor could maybe get you a decent one. If you do have to go into a fight with a really bad weapon, it's not the end of the world. In the first few weeks, most of the enemies have bad weapons too, and if you need to take an easy fight or two, that's fine. Otherwise, try to take the highest paying fights you can. Whenever you see a 1v many or survival, you should try to pick them. Especially if it's got the rabble modifier, that essentially cuts the difficulty of the fight in half. In this fight, it's a 1v4 and I'm using a really bad weapon, but these guys go down so easily because it's rabble. These fights pay so much more than any others and they really aren't that bad, especially survival and especially if you have a decent weapon. Knocking out multiple high-paying fights like this is pretty much the difference between struggling through a run or having so much money that you can do whatever you want. You should start to think about training early on too if you have a little bit of money for it. The sooner you start, the better it's going to be down the road. I like to train stamina. I think it's by far the most important stat, but remember the training reduces your max stamina for that week. So if you're going to do a tougher fight, there's nothing wrong with skipping the training so that you have your stamina for the fight. Maybe if you're doing an easier fight, you can train harder that week. And if you don't have the money for it, not a problem either. It's really not necessary to train every single week, just try to get it in when you can. A really important thing that's easy to overlook is the random events. You want to familiarize yourself with these events and learn the consequences of the choices so you can always pick the most beneficial ones. For the upgrades you get after fights, when they offer things like free heals or rerolls, those are always really good. Anytime it's something to do with stamina, I think those are the best ones you can get. As you get through a few weeks and you have some money, consider that shields are a great investment. They'll do more for you than a whole suit of armor, and they should probably be your next priority after a weapon. Also look out for cheap gear that boosts fame. Things like aspirant straps or the Malum mask. Having a bit of extra fame lying around can help a lot with re-rolling the store, holding items, revealing fights, and even trading for money. Once you get to week 4, you'll have the chance to do a boss fight. These fights are kind of tough, but they reward some really good weapons. So if you don't already have a weapon, this is a really good way to get one. If you do already have a weapon though, you might just want to do an easier fight or one that's paying more. Something else you want to do is get familiar with enemies. Pay attention to their names and what kind of gear they use. This helps when you're trying to evaluate the difficulty of a fight, it helps you pick good matchups for your current gear, and it helps you if you need to get a weapon from spoils. For example, a good early enemy to target in spoils is a pit boss because they use some weapons that do a ton of damage and it can be really OP if you get one early on. It's a small thing to learn the enemies, but it really helps over the course of a whole run. Most of the Skolo upgrades are luxuries and I don't recommend worrying about them too much. The one I think is most worth it is We Who Are About to Disinfect. It's a good investment and it can save you a lot of money on heals. Having to spend a bunch of money on heals after each fight is one of the biggest pitfalls that can completely ruin your run in this game, and this definitely helps to avoid it. It'll make it so that you usually only need to heal once or twice after any fight, and you get the most out of each heal. It's expensive, but once you have some extra money, or the first time you need a big heal, it's a good time to get it. Don't worry about your victory condition early on either. The early game should be all about picking the best fights to set up your run, not worrying about pleasing patrons or saving money or anything. You're not really going to get any of the victories done before the late game or close to it, so don't rush and just focus on setting yourself up so that the whole run is easier. And once you've got a good weapon or two and a shield, keep looking at the shop for some armor or some nice discounts on more expensive gear, keep your training up, maybe start focusing on your victory, and you're pretty much set for the rest of the run. So that's that. Always look at the fights first, get a good weapon, and try to do as many high-paying fights as possible in the early weeks. Those are really the big 3 that are going to make any run a lot easier. So I hope these tips help. You can click this video right here if you want some actual combat tips, and that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.